Hi folks, I'm going to let this suffice as a weekly overview, even though technically, sorry, I'm just adjusting this, even though technically I do my weekly overviews on Sundays and Mondays, and those days have kind of gotten away from me. But the week brings, and I'm going to take this to, let's see. I'm going to take this to about the 16th, which is a week from today. I'm doing this on September the 9th. And then a couple of the transits of the 16th, if I do my weekly overview on Saturday or Sunday of this coming week, we can repeat. But let's first focus on this week, and let's take ourselves up to September the 14th first. This week is characterized by a very simple set of conjunctions between three, I'll use the word planets: the Sun, the South Node, and Mercury. The Sun conjuncts the South Node on the 10th of September. On the 11th of September, Mercury conjuncts the South Node. And on the 13th of September, the Sun conjuncts Mercury. So this week is a Sun-Mercury South Node conjunction. That's it. Those are the transits that are happening this week. By the time we get into next week, and especially as we get to the 16th, next Tuesday, 1 week from today, we have two intriguing aspects to Chiron in Aries. Mars in Libra opposes Chiron, and Venus in Leo trines Chiron. So Chiron gets triggered by these two transits. So those are the two families of aspects that we're going to consider. And they're intriguing, truly, especially the Sun-Mercury South Node conjunction is just, anyway, we'll talk about that in a second. But the first thing I want to just remind you is that it is the week after the full moon, and energetically, the week after the full moon is the easiest to navigate in terms of productivity. The two productive, active weeks in any month, and I'm using the word month as derived from the word moon, so I'm talking about the 28-day period from one new moon to the next new moon. And we're in the month of Virgo, therefore, because we had the new moon in Virgo on August the 22nd. Oh, dear Lord. Yes, August the 22nd, I'm not crazy. So that we're in that month, and the week before the full moon and the week after the full moon, energetically, when the moon is fuller, are that much more energetically charged than the week after a new moon and the week before a new moon. So, however, the week before a full moon, especially as we head towards the full moon, tends to become energetically and intuitively over the top, so that productivity can be compromised by agitation. And once the full moon occurs, in this case a full moon lunar eclipse, on September the 7th, the week after that has just about the right balance of energy and intuitive and emotional charge to get things done. And yet it is not energetically so charged that we are kind of all over the place with regard to managing our anxieties, and it isn't one thing after another. And the week before full moon, I find that we often are able to get things done, but it just takes an evolved capacity to understand that everything will just go according to plan and everything will be fine. And but just the, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to get this done, and is this going to happen, is that going to happen, why does everything have to happen at once, and all that kind of stuff can just build up. Whereas the week after the full moon, not only does Spirit stop throwing things onto your to-do list assertively, it gives you also the opportunity and the energy to be able to push through and get certain things done. So in that spirit, to the first of 3 points that I want to make in this video, that's the first one: enjoy this week in terms of productivity, and may important and critical things that are on your to-do list gently and gradually get done because you'll have the energy to do so. Now, the second of three things to consider is the Sun-Mercury South Node conjunction. The first thing I want to say, and if you're experiencing this, just know that you're not going crazy, is that when the Sun and Mercury conjunct, and they do many times in the year, and there is indeed, I feel, an appropriate design to this, and I'll talk about that in a second, just know that it can feel like a minor Mercury retrograde. Mercury is combust, and Mercury's powers, cognitive, technical, transactional, communication related, are compromised because Mercury is off in a conference room with the Sun, and he is busy, and he and the Sun are having their rendezvous, which is necessary and needed. And so minor Mercury retrograde things, but especially communication related irritation, and this may have shown up yesterday, September 9th, September 8th, today, September 9th, September 10th, September 11th, 12th. These 5 days or so could be the ones that are most impacted by, what are you saying, and what is going on, and why can't you figure this out, and I'm sorry, but the line is not clear, and why can't I remember my password? I type it in all the time, and, you know, that kind of Mercury related, our cognitive abilities. In addition, you know, we aren't guaranteed to have a Mercury-Sun conjunction called a cazimi every time we have eclipses, but we do currently. And not only do we have a Mercury-Sun cazimi during the eclipses, we also have it conjunct the South Node, an important eclipse point, an eclipse point. So the ability to make sense and to have a plan and to be clear about where things are going is compromised. And again, it's part of the design. We're not currently meant to know. By the time we get past the September 21st new moon solar eclipse in Virgo, and by the time we get to the end of September and we kind of spit out on the other side of the two eclipses, certain things will start to fall into place. And it becomes really important right now to show up for everything that feels like something you need to show up for. In certain cases, it may feel like it's not something you need to show up for, but still worth doing. I'm not asking you to show up for something that feels energetically or problematic with regard to integrity, or something that just doesn't feel right or gets you back into a situation that was formerly problematic or abusive. Or that's not what I'm saying. If there's an invitation, it doesn't feel right, you don't have to take it. But at the same time, with the eclipses, as I like to say, God takes the wheel, or spirit takes the wheel, or the universe takes the wheel. And so out of all the choices that are being considered, and out of us feeling the tectonic plates shifting and intimations of change, we can get impatient, understanding and saying, can I just know which door I'm going to be walking through? But at this point in time, too much is up in the air, and the universe is trying to slot everything in its right place. And our ability to, on a cognitive, factual level, make sense of things is also compromised. I would say at this point in time, by design, so that the best we can do is show up to things, respond to things, manage things to the best of our ability, knowing that things are somewhere organizationally being slotted and managed for us, so that by the time the eclipses are done, we can walk through the right door out of the 3, 4, 5, 6, 11, 12 that we are considering. Remember the general advice I've been giving you about these eclipses, dear ones. And I'm not gonna, it's very tempting. When I was thinking about this video, I knew it would be very tempting to go over all my eclipse related messaging in this video. And I was like, but that's always the tendency when I'm doing an astrology video, which is to say, well, I'm gonna say this, but then this is coming from here, and then that came from there. It almost feels like we should just sit down and talk about the astrology of as far back as we can remember, because everything is just kind of building on each other. The wheel keeps turning. And so if you're talking about a specific point of time in the wheel, there's a tendency to go back and then go back and then go back and then go back. I will just say there are plenty of videos that I have been doing. There are at least a couple on each, on the new moon in Virgo. There's one on the full moon lunar eclipse. There are weekly overviews. There's the eagle eye view I did for the second half of 2025. There are plenty of resources to get a sense of. You can just, if this video intrigues you, you can just keep going back and back and back on the free videos to get additional context, so that I can say that and not feel tempted to make this a 3-hour video and you know, kind of repeat everything that I've been saying so far over the past few weeks. But remember that the Pisces-Virgo eclipse axis started in the middle of July of 2024 and goes all the way to February 27. That the new moon solar eclipse on September 21st has a corresponding lunar eclipse in Virgo on March the 3rd of 2026. So this eclipse cycle is not done with us till February 27, and probably the heart of this eclipse cycle is the new moon and corresponding full moon period that we get in Virgo, where the south node is, from September 21st to March the 3rd. So whatever these intimations of change are, my biggest piece of advice to everyone has been, you don't have to do anything to accelerate eclipse change. Because one of the risks is going to be that you're going to think you know where things are going, and you're going to think a little bit proverbial, you know, a little bit like the Fool card in the tarot. You're going to think, I am ready to throw caution in the wind. I know where my north node eclipses are. I know what I need to release in the south node. And I am just going to, I can feel it in my bones, and I'm just going to go jump off the cliff in the direction of the north node. You don't need to do that. Try to develop as best you can an instinctive understanding of what it is that the north node eclipses in Pisces, the house occupied by the sign of Pisces in your birth chart. What are you developing? What are you leaning into? What are you moving towards in such a way that you're strengthening underdeveloped muscles, and it feels like that is where the future kind of adventure, spontaneity, the next step is. It feels right to go in this direction. It feels like this is where the energy is. Try to keep moving in that direction and understand that as you focus on the new, the current or the old will get less and less energy, and when it is ready to drop off, it will drop off. But it's very likely that the current or the old, represented by Virgo in your chart, the house occupied by the sign of Virgo in your chart, is currently providing some stability, some fuel, some, even though it has no life in it, even it's a little bit like the proverbial, oh, well, I want to be a sculptor, but my corporate job, but it is paying the bills, but oh God, I just hate being there, that. But at the end of the day, you can energetically, and with your time, give more and more attention to setting yourself in such a direction that spending more time on the sculpture can help you sustain and manage your lifestyle, move in that right. And the more energy you give towards building the new, the old, which is sustaining and providing security and stability and making things happen and is the fuel. When the time is right, the eclipses will, if it feels energetically right, keep pulling you in the direction of the Pisces part of the chart. And when it is right to drop the Virgo part of the chart, you will. And it is the eclipses of release, the south node eclipses that occur on March the 3rd of 26 and in February of 27. So when you have eclipses like the ones we're having in September, where we have two eclipses on the same axis, and we're heading right into a period from September the 21st of this month to March the 3rd of next month, where we have a discrete new moon solar eclipse and full moon lunar eclipse in the same sign in Virgo in the south node part, there can be a tendency to let the nodes get the better of us and make us feel like, all right, I'm just going to hasten this process, and this means that I need to resign here and I need to let this go because I can just feel that this is my south node pulling, and I can just feel things happening in such a way that this is going to get released and I need to move in this direction. And I'm just going to accelerate it by kicking the south node part of the chart, you know, whatever's developing there, whatever's present there, out of bed, and just move towards the new. to hasten the process. And that can self-sabotage your ability to move in the direction symbolized by the Pisces part of the chart, the house occupied by Pisces in your chart where the North Node is, in a way that can actually guarantee success. Now, what it means to make transitions work are individual to each of our circumstances and to our charts. And I am not reading your chart, and I'm not talking to anyone personally here because you are not on the other line of the other end of the phone here. And this is my way of saying essentially, oh my goodness, sorry, I don't know. This is my way of acknowledging that when we are, especially from a North Node, South Node perspective, moving in a direction that seems like, with the eclipses, the change feels necessary, enlivening, desired. It also feels like it is necessary because inertia is such a powerful force. We can think about, dream about moving towards that life of sculpture and wanting to make changes so we are not dependent on our corporate job anymore. But the actual time and energy it takes to intervene or to stop a certain day-to-day momentum and inertia is really tremendous. Affecting change on our own takes an outrageous amount of focus. So when the eclipses come along, they're basically saying, you know what, let me just help you out here. And I've talked to enough people where eclipsy things have manifestly occurred: a layoff, a clear marked ending, the potential, you know. So the reputation that eclipses have of presenting eclipsy events is fair and present, but for a lot of what I, based on my readings, and ultimately any astrologer has to go back to the empirical data and evidence that you're seeing in the way that astrological transits are actually impacting and affecting lives. The anxiety of change, the possibility of change, the feeling that change is occurring is right now kind of a universal constant. The degree of it depends and varies. The beauty of the eclipses is that it can help us, jolt us out of, or get us out of a certain momentum or an inertia that we're having a hard time breaking away from. Things that we can do to assist that are to understand which direction we're trying to move in and to try to develop a secure lifestyle that will support it. If I am working a corporate job that brings me a certain amount of income and I have become used to living in a 3-bedroom apartment and I have a weekly dry cleaning bill and a monthly this and a monthly that, but I want to become a sculptor, then whatever I can do to construct my life so that my expenditure, for lack of a better word, is in line with where I'm trying to go, will help assist make that change occur in a way that is secure. If I use the eclipses to say, well, the South Node part of my chart, everything is occurring energetically. I can read the signs. I can feel that my corporate job, there's going to be a change. I can feel it. I am just going to quit tomorrow and I'm going to devote all my time. First and foremost, they're your choices. Make them. I would just say eclipses are clearer than that. And they occur over a certain period of time. So to assume that I know exactly what the outcome of an eclipse cycle will be, or to go ahead and say, well, I'm just going to proactively do this to rush this, so much astrological literature cautions around that. There's every chance or possibility that if you have a sense of what you're moving towards and what you're trying to build and what you feel is a direction you want to go in, the more energy you give to constructing that in a way that also takes your financial and emotional security into account, And that can mean not only generating income in a new way, but also managing your liabilities and your expenses in a way that that new path is supported. As you do that, there's every possibility or chance during an eclipse cycle that the eclipse event will occur, but in a way that makes that change sustainable. As opposed to, which can be the case with the nodes, if you kind of go with that Fool card in the tarot and kind of jump off the cliff, in a way that, as opposed to a way that can feel energetically very right and very inspired and very exciting and very adventurous, but ultimately can threaten to sabotage the actual effective transition that the eclipses are trying to create. If a layoff needs to occur, and if that is what the eclipses want, trust and know that it will occur. You don't have to do anything to hasten it. And you certainly don't need to go in and resign so that you don't get the severance. Focus on the new and put the energy on the new and put the energy on the new, and the old will at the right time atrophy and fall away. This means, where am I prioritizing my time? And also, do not assume that the only way for something to move forward, and I've been saying this in my videos, I said I would not repeat all this content, but I am. The only way is not a strict binary. I'm moving in this direction, this needs to go. It could be that the thing, the south node, whatever it is that's being released in the Virgo part of the chart, and what is being released very often during an eclipse cycle starts off as providing a certain amount of stability and fuel. It doesn't feel enlivening. It feels energetically dead and unexciting and like it's sapping your energy, without a doubt. But it can be something that is also easier to lean into to generate a certain amount of security. Whereas with the North Node, there's tremendous development and there's excitement, and it makes you feel alive, but there's also a feeling of, oh, I've got to build things here. Nowhere is the idea that it's all about the journey more appropriate and more on the nose than it is with the nodes. So during a month of eclipses, if the universe decides to deliver you something that is going to jolt you into change or jolt you into movement, then by all means, know that they are here and they are operating. As prepared as you can be for leaning into the new and trying to figure out, in the Pisces part of the chart, the house occupied by Pisces in my chart, what am I building? What am I being encouraged to lean into? What am I being encouraged to develop into? Develop towards? What am I creating? And the eclipses are not the only transit in a chart. And from a South Node in Virgo perspective, what there am I trying to release? And it will likely be something that feels dead, is a source of security, but you instinctively know with where you want things to go, at some point it's going to need to fall away. But it does not need to fall away tomorrow if the eclipses are not demanding that. You could have till February of 2027, March of 2026, the week before and after September 21st, the week before and after November 21st, the week before and after January the 3rd, the week before and after March the 3rd could bring important developments in releasing what needs to be released in the Virgo part of the chart. It is not it's the month of September, so I'm going to jump in and create the change. It is more let me figure out to the best of my ability what I think is going on. Let me focus on what it is that I know I want to create, because that is something I know for sure. Let me become clear about what it is that I gradually want to transition out of. If the universe does something to hasten this transition, fine, but what do I need to do in order to be ready for that? And it is more important during eclipse season to be in observation mode to figure out where this is going. Now, for those of you where the eclipses hit and there's a break, you're going to have no choice but to get into action around that. So if you have gotten laid off, then that is an eclipse-like occurrence to stop the inertia and momentum of something that you've been wanting to change for a while. And so now you get to cooperate with Spirit, in partnership with Spirit, and say, all right, this really now makes me get into action so that I can manage the stability of my financial and emotional security and take the time to move towards creating the new. Okay, I hope all of that helps you. All of that description was so that I could re-emphasize that when the Sun and Mercury are conjuncting, our ability to know factually what is coming, what out of the different options I'm entertaining is going to collapse into place, what is the immediate next step, our ability to make sense of things and know things in a rational and a factual basis, I should use the word factual over rational, is currently compromised by design. As Mercury starts to move ahead from the Sun and is less and less combust after the end of this week. And I would hazard to say after the new moon solar eclipse on September the 21st, and as we head towards the end of September, that is when we might start to get our moorings and our bearings again and say, all right, September month of eclipses, thank you for that. I think I know what my marching orders are, and I'm going to move forward. Or even more importantly, I think I know, am I staying put? Am I moving in this direction? Is this ending? Is this the time? Or is September a month where the actual eclipse event needs to be occurring for me, or is occurring for me, or an eclipse event? Or September a month that is pushing me in the right direction and encouraging me to release what I want to release, but it's still, I'm still in the process of doing so, with the understanding that this particular eclipse cycle does not end till February 27. And March of 26 still is an important milestone. A lot of eclipse manifestations occur when we have a new moon solar eclipse and a full moon lunar eclipse on the same axis together. And it doesn't always happen because it's not unusual for the eclipses to occur. It's not unusual for an old set of eclipses to be finishing up while a new set of eclipses are beginning, and then while the new set of eclipses becomes the current set of eclipses, the next set of eclipses, as early as February of 26, we're going to start to see the eclipses on the Aquarius-Leo axis. So for a whole year between February 26 and February 27, we're going to have eclipses on the Pisces-Virgo axis and the Aquarius-Leo axis. So when you do get a new moon solar eclipse in Virgo on September the 21st of this year, and a full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on March the 3rd, on an eclipse cycle, that is the cauldron when a lot of shifting energy will occur. And the nodes move together. They're the same. And so whether it is the leaning into part of the Pisces, the releasing of the Virgo part of the, it's all going to be occurring together. As you lean into something, the old is going to get released. As you move towards releasing the old, you'll have more time to lean into the new. So all of that is active. Right now, this week, when we're in the heart of the month of September, there will likely be more questions than answers with the Mercury-Sun cazimi. Not only to the first of 3 points that I brought up. I'm sorry about that noise. The air conditioning kind of makes that sound sometimes. So if you can feel a kind of a humming sound, that's what's going on. Right now, to the first point that I made, in the heart of the eclipses, we have the energy. We are going to be called to be productive. The best way to use this week is to be productive towards moving towards creating the new and figuring out how we can appropriately back away from the old without any hasty or sudden moves or decisions unless the eclipse is created for us. But that this is not the week when we're literally at the center, we're just about at the center, at the heart of the eclipse season, to think that we have all the answers and to be comfortable with that and to show up to whatever it is that Spirit is asking us to show up to, whether they're opportunities, offers. I live in Los Angeles, auditions, things to apply to, things to post, things to move towards, things to create. An awareness, a constant questioning, this old that I want to release, is it actually still helping me and a source of stability and support? Am I able to back away from it so that I can focus on the new and manage my energy in the day? And Am I keeping myself on the right track? Am I managing my own lifestyle so that it is actually supportive of the change and transition that I'm trying to make? How ready can I be? How prepared can I be? But right now, given the astrology with the Mercury Sun Cazimi, not only are we going to be dealing with the technical snafus and communication challenges that brings, but we're also going to have more questions than answers right now with regard to what's going to fall into place, what's going to get ready. Is this the way this is going to happen? Is this the way this is going to happen? Is this going to fall through? Is this going to come through? Is this where I'm going? What's, all that. What's the plan? What's the next step? Just it's September the 9th. We still have another new moon solar eclipse on September the 21st. We have that whole last week of September that we've got to go through. Let us enjoy and implore Spirit's ability to organize things for our best, towards the best outcome, as opposed to get in there and start to jolt around because we really need answers right now. We're not going to have those answers. The other thing I want to talk about as far as the Sun-Mercury Cazimi is concerned, or the Sun-Mercury conjunction is concerned, try and understand the reason why. I think it is by design that we have multiple conjunctions every year of Sun and Mercury, and that we have Mercury going retrograde every 3 months. Mercury is our mind. It is our mental faculties. It is and the mind can get disconnected from source once it starts to gather its own momentum, making sense of things. With the mind is limited by what it sees, what it senses, and how it interprets that. The sun, I think, is one of the most misunderstood planets in the way that it is interpreted. It is not our self. Well, it is our self with a capital S, with an uppercase S, whereas the moon is our self with a lowercase s. So the sun is actually our connection to source. It is the sun is the highest part of ourselves. The light of the sun, when it is going over a chart, illuminates, as you've heard me say before, every nook and cranny, but it is much less yang in energy than it is normally interpreted to be. It is that part of us that is accessible to us when we shut down the mind and we focus on a very different kind of solar knowing in our connection to source. The light of the sun illuminates the planets, including the moon, of course. The light of the sun illuminates everything. And wherever the sun is, that solar observation, nothing is hidden from it, and it is present, quiet, and when accessed, it is the only truth there is. And I know what I'm saying sounds esoteric, but it is not in terms of feeling. It is, if we have a contract, if we have a connection with source, it is, and that is at once mysterious and clear, as opposed to simply mysterious, like with the nodes. And remember, with the nodes, again, it's this interplay between the sun and the moon and the earth in terms of how those points are calculated. With the nodes and the eclipses, it is about our engagement with 3D reality and what we feel our sense of purpose is and what has energy and life and why we feel we incarnated, what we're here to grow and develop into, what we're already strong in, that we can rely on, but we also need to release, because staying in it too long is going to lead to loss. But with the sun, it is the clear light of the sun. It is our connection to source. It is a certain knowing. And Mercury, you know, the so-called monkey mind, especially as it gathers momentum and speed and communications and making sense of what is going on around us. And is this going to come through? And I talked to so-and-so, and I wrote to so-and-so, so-and-so emailed me, and such is happening. Is this happening? This is happening. Oh, great. I meet so-and-so, says I need to get this email. Great. It has its own. This is what, with Mercury, it is us making sense of things on a much more mundane level and transacting and communicating. But Mercury, especially when he's moving fast, or especially when he's further away from the sun, needs that solar connection and that solar contact to, it's almost like Mercury goes through a baptism of solar fire multiple times a year because he needs it, because there's a certain amount of mercurial karma that needs to be burnt off, because there's a certain amount of, with Mercury retrograde, you know, I always say it's as if Mercury himself is like, I've been throwing up intuitive red flags around this, and we've been moving forward in a certain direction, and you think this is going to come through, or you think this is okay for you, but let me go retrograde so I can get you some more facts on this basket that you're placing your eggs in, so that you can really decide, is this the basket these eggs need to go in, or is it something else? It's like a train starts to speed on a certain track, and we start to think, okay, these are the stops we're going to make. And Mercury says every 3 months, it is time for me to go to retrograde so that we can go back to the drawing board and we can become clear about understanding the direction we're moving in is fine, but some of the more mundane, where we're expecting to stop and where we think our next destination is on this direction that we're moving, let's just reconnect with source. Because whenever Mercury goes retrograde, he's going to conjunct with the sun. And that retrograde Mercury conjuncting the sun starts a new Mercury cycle in the sign where that happens. Mercury retrogrades and Mercury-Sun conjunctions are very important and necessary touch bases between our minds that are dealing with fact and data and communications and creating a certain 3D reality, and touching base with source to go. When Mercury conjuncts the sun, it is as if the sun meets up with Mercury and says, here's the agenda. Here's the missive for you from source with regard to what you need to focus on until we meet again. So right now, Mercury and the sun are in their own conference room and are having a meeting. Mercury's combust. You can think of Mercury as kind of burning off a certain amount of karma and becoming born again after the conjunction of the sun, burning off a certain amount of pattern karma. But more importantly, our minds, our Mercury and our solar self, our connection to source in that very clear divine way, there needs to be a connection and an alignment. And while that connection and alignment is not guaranteed during the eclipses, it is helpful. And during that time, we're not going to be able to access Mercury's power, because what we're actually trying to access is trying to get very, very still, show up for everything we need to show up to, understand what is being moved out of our lives, understand how the cheese is being moved on the table, and let Mercury conjunct with the sun on the 13th, so that the actual direction in which Mercury needs to now harness its own energy, the direction Mercury needs to move to, the winged messenger, where am I flying to, can become clear to Mercury. So there's something very magical and purposeful about the sun and Mercury having this conjunction during the eclipses. Us not having the factual data available to us, but us recognizing that we need to show up to everything and on a mundane 3D level, keep everything going, but recognize that some part of us, our mental ability to make sense of things, needs to get in touch with source, and events are trying to occur in such a way that they can align with this energy, so that as we move past the Cazimi, we move past the 13th, and as we move to the solar eclipse on the 21st, we can start to get greater and greater clarity with regard to where it is that we're going. The third thing about this Sun-Mercury Cazimi is that it's an important milestone in the current Mercury cycle in Leo. And so Mercury cycles tend to be very, very effective, because while we're focusing on the eclipses and we're focusing on where Saturn is, and we're focusing on where Jupiter is and where Pluto is, and all these other things that create stress and urgency and take up a lot of energy, a Mercury cycle, just as I mentioned, is like a low drumbeat that gets something, that takes care of a project in the part of the chart where it occurs. The Mercury cycle in Leo started on July 31st of this year, when the retrograde Mercury and the Sun conjuncted in Leo. The first phase of it, sorry, not the first phase. July 30th, August 11th, Mercury goes direct. August 11th to September the 13th is the first Yang phase of it, where some project is being constructed in the house occupied by Leo in our chart. And in this phase till September the 13th, we are building something there, a prototype. From September 13th to November the 9th, when Mercury goes retrograde, we're going to take this prototype, we're going to test it, we're going to modify it, we're going to develop it, we're going to grow it. And then November 9th to November 20th is when the next Mercury Sun Cazimi occurs in Scorpio, and a new Mercury cycle will begin in Scorpio. Between November 9th and 20th, we finalize, we finish up, we wrap up the Mercury cycle in Leo. So, with just the Sun and Mercury conjunction, communication snafus, technical snafus, minor Mercury retrograde incidents, Mercury and the Sun, and our inability to access Mercury's clarity and power. Mercury and the Sun needing to meet up, us not knowing factually what is going on, us feeling the urge and the frustration of not knowing exactly what the future might look like. Or if I got laid off, what's my next job? Or should I do this or should I do that? But just show up to everything to the best of your ability, so the universe knows that you're planting as many seeds as you can and acting in partnership and cooperation with Spirit. Assume less, show up more, and do your best, so that Spirit can give you options during eclipse season. And then after the Mercury Sun Cazimi occurs, because Mercury needs to get in contact with, needs to be in this conference room with the Sun, and our ability to make sense of and manage and navigate 3D reality needs to touch base with our solar connection to source in order to make sure that we're moving forward in an aligned manner, aligned with source and Spirit's plan for us, aligned with what our soul knows is part of its contract of the next steps, or what needs to unfold. And our mind is not. So this mind-spirit, mind-soul connection that happens multiple times in a year, we're having one of these Cazimis on the 13th. And that is the energy that is at work. So right now we show up to the best we can. We make the most of, as patiently as possible and as gracefully as possible, with travel or communication, or, you know, it's a little bit like the right energy really, it's not even so much the Two of Swords energy, but it does have the sense of, this is not a bad card for this, because we've got that new moon highlighted there on September the 21st. So until then, there might be the sense of, I just don't know. I have my guard up. I'm going to do my practice. I'm going to show up to everything I need to show up to. It's a little bit a card that is a better, a more effective, I don't want to spend time, let me see, can I pull it out? It's a little bit like where we are at right now needs to be the Hanged Man card in the tarot, where we are. The only thing about the Hangman that I don't like is the inaction that both of these cards kind of suggest. But it's the right energy of understanding that we're kind of bound by what Spirit has, so it's almost better to just kind of be in a state of suspension and let that crown chakra. I mean, it's a great card because you've got the mind and the sun conjuncting as you are in the space of, right now, I don't know anything. Right now, I don't know what's unfolding. Right now, I don't know which door I'm going to go through. Right now, I don't know what's going to come through. Right now, I don't know if it's going to be some sort of acceleration or not. But I am here. I am observing. But where I need to take action and where Spirit is throwing things for me that I need to take action towards, I'm paying attention and taking action where I need to so I can be the mix of things. I think 45 minutes later, we've really killed the Sun-Mercury conjunction. The other conjunction in the middle of this, of course, is that the South Node is also conjuncting the Sun tomorrow and Mercury day after tomorrow. And the Sun-Mercury conjunction happens on the 13th. And the South Node is the point where something in the house occupied by Virgo right now needs to be released. The idea is that something is developed and strong and there for us that we can lean into. It's not going to take a lot of effort to harvest what we need to harvest in the South Node, and it can be something that is providing us with stability and fuel and security. But it will likely feel dead and lifeless and frustrating to spend time there because we just know that it has no life and it has no animus, it has no meaning. It's like, yes, I'm doing that. It's like that proverbial job that is paying the bills, but it's just feeling like, the idea that I would be spending my time doing this just makes me feel like I'm kind of dead before my time, or I'm leading the wrong life. It's not where we're meant to be living, but it's not without its purpose. Know that wherever the South Node is an old way of operating in the house occupied by Virgo in your chart. Remember, we had the new moon in Virgo on August the 22nd, and that new moon is not an eclipse. It's a normal new moon, so it is a portal between August 22nd and September 21st to plant seeds to bring the house occupied by Virgo into alignment with what you value and where you want to go. You will likely harvest those seeds 5 to 7 months from now. So if you know your chart, you know the house that is occupied by the sign of Virgo, and you want to usher in a new way of creating something meaningful or something abundant in the Virgo part of your chart, this is the time to be planting seeds towards that. This is what I mean by pay attention to the new. And a normal new moon could bring in opportunities that you need to respond to. You could be taking action. Focus on the new. And as I said, the old at the right time, once it is done providing you with a certain amount of nourishment and security, will leave behind when the transition time is right. It does not have to all happen in September. The eclipses continue, say it with me again, all the way to February 27. There's no question that for some people, September will bring eclipse moments. That change, that puts a certain type of momentum and inertia to rest and creates the break to create change. But for others, it could have happened. There are plenty of eclipses occurring on the Pisces-Virgo axis. We have a Pisces eclipse a year from now. When that break occurs for you and when that eclipse event occurs is not for you to know necessarily it will happen at the right time. It's just for you to cooperate in this direction. It is very likely or possible that as you focus on bringing in and what is new and planting those seeds, there's every chance or possibility that between September 21st of this year, when you have the new moon South Node solar eclipse and the corresponding full moon lunar eclipse on March the 3rd, that a significant amount of releasing in the Virgo part of the chart on something that may be a source of security and maybe an easy and natural. When we are operating in a South Node, we can really feel like we are in some sort of flow, and it takes very little effort to generate to operate effectively there, because it is a known strength. It is an overdeveloped muscle, so to use it is not complicated, and it has its purpose. It's just not going to have life and spontaneity, and we know this. But as we focus on the new, and with the new moon in Virgo on August the 22nd, it is asking us to focus on the new, not just in the Pisces part of the chart where the North Node eclipse does, but even in the Virgo part of the chart. Okay, if there's an old way of doing things that feels like it's something you can lean on, but also feels like it is on its way out and needs to be on its way out, and you might be really impatient for it to be on its way out, which is what tends to happen during the month of eclipses. And you feel like, yeah, I could see how by March of 26 it's on its way out. I hope I don't have to wait till February 27. I'm only quoting what I'm hearing my clients say. But yeah, if that is how long it takes, that is how long it takes. At least I have something I can rely on. The question with this August 22nd new moon is, okay, well, what do you want to replace it with in the Virgo part of the chart? What is going to have energy? What is new? Plant those seeds. Remember, the new moon creates a month, 28 days, where you can plant seeds and take action to bring the house occupied, in this case by Virgo, into alignment with what you value and the direction you want to go in. And it is 5 to 7 months after the new moon, after those seeds have planted, that something actually grows so that you can harvest it. So plant those seeds. Starting September 21st, what is occurring this week, this cazimi between the Sun and Mercury and their conjunction with the South Node, will go into action. And yes, it is a second new moon in Virgo, so the theme of building the new in Virgo will continue, but it will be compounded with a much clearer awareness as you move into that first week after the new moon solar eclipse on by the end of September with regard to timelines and nature of what needs to be released in the Virgo part of the chart. And what needs to be released in the Virgo part of the chart, you may have gotten very clear indications of it the week before and after January 13th of this year and March 13th of this year. March 13th, I think that's the right date, is when we had the first Virgo lunar eclipse on the Virgo Pisces axis of this year. With the eclipses, sometimes it's all about messaging. Oh, I think it's this what needs to be released. It may not be time to release it completely, but here's a message, here's a sign, here's a shifting tectonic plate. Focus on building the new. Don't let the old and the South Node manage and control you to the point that you lose opportunities to move in the direction that you want. Move in the direction that you want while capitalizing on and using and leaning into what the South Node is providing. And don't assume that the only option is at some point for the South Node to dramatically end. I've given this example before. You could be moving in a certain direction. You may have a commitment in your South Node to work 30 hours a week. You may realize, I'm moving towards building the new, but I'm really putting in 25 hours a week. At a certain point, the powers that be at the 30 hours a week will come to you and say, you're not putting in 30 hours a week, and you can say, well, this is what I'm trying to do. That doesn't mean that they're going to say, all right, you need to resign. That could say, all right, well, let's do something so that you're working 20 hours a week. It doesn't have to be, and then at some point that could turn into 10 hours a week if they like your work and what you're doing. Don't let the South Node, and we all have to walk this axis of security and blanket on the one hand, and adventure and risk on the other. We can't let the stability that the South Node provides construct our lives completely, even though it can be a place where we can generate a certain type of security, because it will make us feel like we're leading the wrong life, and it's going to feel dead and flat and very, very frustrating, and it can make us very unhappy. So you've got to find the right admixture between the blanket and the security and the comfort of the South Node, but also moving towards the life that is right for you, as is symbolized by the North Node. You want to avoid jumping off the cliff with the North Node so that you're in your hero's journey without a doubt, but then the hero's journey, again, as I've said to you before, is no joke. Do you really want to be sleeping on pavements and slaying the dragons? And you can do it in a more systematic way. And to me, the North Node is unavoidable. in terms of if you want to lead a more fulfilled life. It might have a mirage-like quality, but the things we desire have a mirage-like quality, my dears. Unless you're going to renounce desire in this lifetime and really try to lead a more monastic, spiritually charged life that is about detaching from this 3D reality, which is a perfectly valid and acceptable choice, and in certain traditions, the recommended choice. Then if you're here and you want to have a fulfilled time, you're going to have to make room for that North Node. But it's all about balancing that. It's the North Node that has the divine support. Another way to look at it is always move towards the North Node in a Saturnian way, responsibly, taking accountability for your actions, understanding that there's a certain amount of magical support towards the North Node, but that you aren't relying on that magic to save you, and always being there. It might be there, and it will likely be there, but it'll be so much more fun when you are grounded. The Sun and Mercury are conjuncting, and they're conjuncting the South Node. So this week, there may be a great deal of contemplation. I'm not going to say awareness, and I'm not going to say knowledge, because Mercury and the Sun are conjuncting, and we do not have the answers. I don't think we're going to have fact. I think we're going to have contemplation and awareness, sensitivity towards what it is that needs to be released in the Virgo part of the chart, with an understanding that there are still things, and maybe even eclipsy things, that need to occur over the next 21 days, 20 days. And especially as you head to the new moon solar eclipse on the 21st, that will provide greater clarity with regard to which doors are opening for us and which doors we're going to walk through. And the walking through those doors is going to give us a sense of, all right, how does this affect what I'm going to be releasing in the Virgo part of the chart? And when am I going to be releasing it? Am I releasing it immediately? Am I releasing it by the end of the year? Am I releasing it by Thanksgiving? Am I releasing it by March 2026? Am I releasing it by February 27? What is my sense of things? Because the release will happen, and it will make sense when it needs to. You could assume that it's going to happen by March 26, only to realize that you need to hang on to something in the South Node in Virgo, in the house occupied by Virgo, till February 27, and be grateful that it's there. It does not need to. Don't let the security blanket and the security that the South Node provides. What happens with the South Node is that when we live in the South Node for too long, it does come with a sense of loss. Whatever it is that needs to be released in the Virgo part of the chart needs to be released. If you live too much in it, thinking, oh, this will always be there, at some point it won't. So we're transitioning with the eclipses. We're leaning into building and developing and going after something in the house occupied by Pisces in our chart. And we're leaving something in the Virgo part of the chart. Right now, we're also working to replace what we need to release with something new in the Virgo part of the chart. We had a new moon on August the 22nd. We've had the full moon. We're in the most productive week of this month between August 21st and September 21st. And as we head towards September 21st and Mercury clears the Cazimi with the Sun, we're going to have greater and greater clarity with regard to what direction we're actually moving in, more factual information that we can build on, and by the end of September, a greater sense of not only a confirmation of what it is that, because I think a lot of us instinctively know what we're releasing in the Virgo part of the chart. We just don't know the timeline and the timing of it. And we're going to get greater clarity as we head to the end of the month. But this week, events occurring, this is why I'm saying show up to everything to the best of your ability. And showing up to things naturally puts them in a place of, well, it's going to be this, and it's going to be that, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be that, or it's going to be this, and it's going to be that. And it's just like, let me just show up, and then universe, with the eclipses, you decide what's happening and when it's happening, or make sense of what it is that I'm showing up to, etc. But with the conjunctions of the Sun and Mercury with the South Node, there might be events and contemplation that occurs this week that you can then point to as you head past the September 21st new moon solar eclipse and go, oh, okay. That is when I was not able to access the energy of Mercury and have the plan of the timing for the South Node, but sort of the appropriate archetypal powers were having that conference, the Sun, Mercury, and the South Node in a conference room together, hashing it out with regard to what needs to be released in the Virgo part of the chart and what the time release of that is going to be and what the timing is going to be and what we're going to be leaning into in the Pisces part of the chart. And for us, what it means on an experiential level is the awareness of things shifting without right now having the facts. Now, I said I would take us to the 16th. Chiron in Aries has been trying to heal us, to reintegrate some part of us in the house occupied by Aries in our chart that was separated from us through conditioning or some sort of trauma or some sort of event in our childhood, in our teenage years. Mars in Libra opposing Chiron. The faster moving planet Mars needs to do something, pursuing goals, setting boundaries, pursuing what you desire, standing up for yourself, setting boundaries. Mars, those two energies, that arrow. Hunter-gatherer, protector, testosterone, male energy, in the Libra part of the chart needs to occur in such a way that it serves this healing. And very often with Chiron, it is healing related to self-confidence in something or being in integrity with ourselves, because that's where the breaks really occur that Chiron then tries to heal. Chiron is bringing some part of you back to yourself and go, okay, this is who I am. And these powers I can now access. But with Chiron, you can only heal something when you examine the wound. And the examination of the wound means that you need to be aware the wound is there. And you become aware of the wound through pain. So Chiron's influence is helpful, but ultimately is only effective if you re-encounter conditioned behaviors and their consequences through the lens of greater maturity and awareness. And that greater maturity and awareness, when you encounter painful situations where you are acting from an unhealed place, force you to examine wounds and to move towards healing them, and to understand what it would be like to operate in a less triggered and more healed way, in a healing that is so fundamental to you and symbolized by healing that needs to occur in the house occupied by Aries in your chart. So Mars is going to need to, as you head towards the 16th, take some actions towards what you desire in the Libra part of the chart, or set boundaries in the Libra part of the chart in such a way that it contributes to this healing. And it is the more dynamic, charged, more palpable of the two transits that are taking place on the 16th, because the lovely and beautiful thing is that Venus in Leo is going to be trining Chiron on that day as well. So the ability to build bridges, to capitalize on and to relationship opportunities, financial opportunities, creative opportunities. Use a Venusian, you're going to also have access to a Venusian energy on that day that can help smooth. So if you do have to stand up for yourself or pursue something, know that from the Leo part of the chart, you also have a bridge building, velvet glove, courtliness available to you to help you with this healing in the Aries part of the chart. You're going to have to sit with your own chart and figure out where Aries is, what house is occupied by it, what Chiron is healing there. And there may be a need for assertiveness in the Libra part of the chart to serve this healing, but you will have Venus's support, relationship building, financial opportunities, acting in a way that supports your values, creates harmony. You're going to have that support, that healing support there as well. I thought that this video was going to be a 20 to 30 minute video, and that I would move towards being able to do my Sagittarius video for the membership part of the channel, but that I think I'm going to have to leave to tomorrow, because an hour and 5 minutes in, I'm going to need to have a lie down after this. I hope you found this useful. I am very, very delighted to have done this video, personally. I think it has useful information in it, and it's not as if I don't think my other videos don't, but some feel, and this is it was a very Mercury Cazimi. You know, I've had my sort of trying to make sense of it, and then at a certain point you hit a certain flow and you can go with it. Anyway, I will stop. I'm so glad for the opportunity to do this video and get it out there to you guys. There are 3 ways to engage with me: the free content I put on this video, the membership part of the channel that is $6.99 a month, and where I put rising sign specific content. You can also watch that for your sun sign and moon sign if you like, but it's for rising sign specific content. And then my email address and information on memberships is in the description box below. You can always email me at the email address in the description box below, and I can get you information if you're interested in a personal reading, and I can get you information about rates and offerings. Subscribe to me on my YouTube channel if you haven't already. When you subscribe, there's a bell icon next to the subscribe button. There's a wiggly bell on top. Click on that. You'll be notified when I do new videos. You can contribute to this channel monetarily by donating to it using the thanks button below, or information, well, by using the thanks button below, or information on donations is in the description box below. You can contribute to this channel for free by liking this video or commenting on it. Likes and comments give videos greater circulation on YouTube. YouTube seems to have rolled out a hype button, I think. And I don't know how to use it or what it's about, but if you have clarity and you want to hype the video, feel free to do that as well. Anyway, those are all options. Thank you for your time and attention. I'm now going to process and upload this video, and then try and get a good night's sleep so that we can carry on through eclipse season. All right. Take care. I hope you're having an energized time. I hope that this is a productive week for you. And I hope that September is a month that moves you in desired directions with a certain amount of eclipsy excitement, so that you can actually feel that you're headed in the right direction. You know what you need to release in the Virgo part of the chart at the right time between now and February 2027. I will leave it at that. We will keep chatting. Thank you. Take care.